Imagine this. You're facing a really serious murder charge. The prosecution has this long list of things they say you did, but there's one huge thing missing: the victim's body. How does that even work?
It's honestly one of the biggest challenges you can find in criminal law, and that's exactly what we're diving into today with this case involving Deandra Booker and Ashley Elkins.
Right, so Ashley Elkins, she was a 30-year-old mother from Warren, reported missing back on January 2nd, 2025.
And tragically, her body's never been found. Her ex-boyfriend, Deandra Booker, he's the one accused.
So our mission today really is to unpack the huge legal hurdles involved when you try to prosecute a murder without a body. We want you to get a real sense of how these cases get built.
Yeah, often it's almost entirely on circumstantial evidence, bits and pieces.
Exactly. And we'll look at the legal challenges, why the sources are calling this a high-risk, high-profile prosecution. Basically, why every little detail suddenly becomes super critical.
We'll dig into the evidence they do have, the whole legal process, and, the strategies both sides might be using.
And it really all comes back to that one central fact, doesn't it? Ashley Elkins' body. It just hasn't been found.
That absence defines the whole case. It fundamentally shapes how the prosecution has to approach everything.
So that's the core difficulty right there, isn't
Yeah.
it? I mean, without a body, the prosecution has this double burden. They have to convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt that Ashley is actually deceased.
And not just deceased, but that this defendant, Deandra Booker, is the one responsible for her death. All without the most direct piece of proof you could possibly have.
So how do they even start trying to bridge that massive gap?
Well, they have to rely really heavily on what's called circumstantial evidence. Think of it like trying to put together a jigsaw puzzle, but you don't have the box picture.
Yeah.
You've got these pieces, maybe some forensic clues, digital tracks, maybe what someone saw, and you have to arrange them so they tell a clear story.
A story that points only in one direction.
Exactly. The sources we looked at emphasize that for a nobody case, the prosecution's argument, it must be airtight to survive a trial. It's got to be incredibly thorough, meticulous, really, connecting all those little dots.
Okay, so when you say airtight for a circumstantial case, especially when the biggest piece, the body, is missing, does that mean just like a mountain of evidence? Or is it more about how perfectly those pieces have to fit together?
It's really both. You need enough dots, sure, but crucially, those dots have to connect in a way that leads, compellingly, to only one conclusion, no other reasonable explanation.
Gotcha.
In Booker's case, the first set of dots they're highlighting, that's the forensic evidence. Investigators went through the relevant locations with a fine-tooth comb.
And what did they find? I mean, what's significant if there's no body at the scene?
Well, in Booker's bathroom drain, specifically, investigators reported finding blood and hair, and critically also the presence of bleach.
Bleach. Okay, that sounds
Right.
like cleanup.
That's the strong suggestion, yes. It points towards a possible violent struggle, followed by a pretty deliberate attempt to wash away the evidence. It's an inference, but a powerful one. An alleged violent act, and then trying to erase it.
And it's often not just what's found inside a private space anymore, is it? We leave traces everywhere. Was there, like, surveillance footage or anything like that?
There was, yeah, that plays a big part too. Sources mentioned surveillance footage showing a man pushing a cart towards a dumpster.
Pushing a cart to a dumpster. Okay, that's suggestive.
It definitely implies a potential disposal, maybe evidence, maybe something else. It adds another piece to the narrative the prosecution is building, suggesting, a conscious effort to hide something important.
So we've got potential physical traces, hints of cleanup, visual suggestion of disposal. But these days, so much comes down to our digital lives. What did they find there?
Oh, absolutely. The digital footprint is huge here. The sources specifically point to what they called chilling Google searches from Booker's phone.
Chilling how? What kind of searches?
Searches that seem to indicate intent and planning. Things that you wouldn't just casually look up. This is really crucial for the prosecution because it potentially points towards premeditation.
Which is key for a first-degree murder charge.
Exactly. In a case without a body, establishing that intent, that mental state before the act, that becomes almost as vital as any physical trace evidence. It's a window into planning.
Okay, so the prosecution is weaving this all together.
Yeah.
The forensic stuff suggesting violence and a cleanup. The surveillance footage hinting at getting rid of something. And then these digital searches that seem to show planning beforehand.
They're building this mosaic, piece by piece, trying to construct a coherent picture that compensates for the fact that the central piece, the body, is missing.
And this all leads to the specific charges Deandra Booker is facing, which It's not just murder, is it?
No, not at all. It's a really comprehensive set of charges. It tells you a lot about the prosecution's theory of the entire event.
Right. So first there's first-degree premeditated murder. That means they need to prove intent, planning,
Hmm.
all that we just discussed.
Yep. But then you also have tampering with evidence, which fits with the alleged cleanup, the bleach, maybe the dumpster trip.
Okay, that makes sense.
But then there are these other charges. Even without a body, he's charged with disinterment and mutilation of a body.
Wait, even without a body, how does that work?
It's a strong signal, isn't it? It implies the prosecution believes and intends to prove that the body was interfered with in that specific way, possibly to hinder identification or disposal. It puts the defense in a tricky spot.
How so?
Well, they can't just say he didn't kill her. They might also have to argue, and the body wasn't dismembered or mutilated, which is a difficult position when the body itself is missing. It adds another layer they have to contest.
Huh. Okay. And what else?
Concealing a death. And significantly lying to a peace officer, suggesting, an attempt to mislead the investigation from the start.
So taken together, these charges basically lay out the prosecution's whole narrative.
Yep.
A planned murder, followed by deliberate actions to destroy evidence, dispose of the body in a specific way, and then lie about it.
Precisely. It paints a picture of the alleged sequence, not just the act itself.
So where does the case stand right now? What's the next step?
Right now, it's scheduled for a continued preliminary examination. And this is a really pivotal stage, a crucial pretrial hearing.
And just to be clear for everyone listening, at this stage, the judge isn't deciding if Booker is guilty or innocent, right? It's a different standard.
Absolutely. Key distinction. The judge here is determining if there's probable cause. Basically, is there enough credible evidence to make it reasonable to believe that a crime was committed and that this defendant might have committed it?
So a lower bar than beyond a reasonable doubt.
Much lower, yes.
Yeah.
Beyond a reasonable doubt is the very high standard needed for a conviction at trial. Probable cause is just about whether there's enough to proceed to trial. It's like a gatekeeper function.
Okay, understood. So that's the prosecution side, building this case brick by brick. What about the defense? How does the fact that Ashley Elkins' body is missing shape their strategy?
Well, that absence is fundamentally the defense's main leverage point. It's the primary way they can introduce reasonable doubt.
How do they do that, practically speaking?
They can float alternative scenarios. Maybe Ashley ran away. Maybe she decided to disappear. Or maybe, tragically, she met with foul play, but from someone else entirely.
So their main goal is just to chip away at that link the prosecution is trying to build between Booker and her disappearance.
Exactly. To argue there's no definitive proof she's even dead, let alone that Booker is the one responsible. The lack of a body is the cornerstone of that argument.
Now, there's another element mentioned in the sources. Booker's behavior in court, described as disruptive, uncooperative, even aggressive. Does that play into the legal strategy at all? Or is it separate?
Well, technically, his courtroom demeanor isn't evidence of guilt for the charges, but let's be realistic, it absolutely could influence perceptions.
How so? Like jury perception if it goes to trial?
Potentially, yes. If a defendant comes across as consistently hostile or uncooperative, it might subconsciously make it harder for a jury to see them in a sympathetic light, or to fully credit the defense's arguments about reasonable doubt. It's a really delicate balance for the defense team to manage.
Yeah, I can imagine. It all really underscores why this is being called a high-risk, high-profile prosecution, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The burden on the state, the prosecution, is just immense here. Every single piece of that circumstantial evidence, every ruling the judge makes, it all carries extra weight because there's no body to anchor the case.
The case has to be, as you said, airtight.
Any crack, any inconsistency, any plausible alternative explanation, that could be enough for reasonable doubt. The stakes are incredibly high, and everyone watches these cases closely because they're so challenging.
And it feels like this case is more than just about this specific tragic situation. It kind of gives us a window into how the whole legal system is adapting, right?
I think so, yeah. It shows how heavily the system now relies on, modern forensics, digital trails, surveillance, all these things to build narratives when that traditional core piece of evidence the body is missing.
So it's testing how far these newer kinds of proof can take us in a courtroom.
You could say that. It's an ongoing process, seeing how courts weigh this complex web of indirect evidence against the fundamental need for proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
So just to recap, we've really dug into this core challenge, prosecuting a murder without a body. We've seen how the prosecution tries to use these, innovative and complex webs of circumstantial evidence, forensic, digital visual to build their case in the DeAndre Booker trial.
Yeah, it's a really complex puzzle, relying on connecting those dots when the main piece is gone. It definitely forces us to think about what proof even looks like now in the 21st century.
Which leads to maybe a final thought for you listening. In a world where our digital footprints are everywhere and forensic science gets more and more sophisticated, how do you think the legal system strikes that balance? The balance between needing that really concrete traditional proof versus these compelling stories built from all this indirect circumstantial evidence.
Right. What does a case like this, the Booker case, tell us about how the very definition of proof might be evolving in criminal justice? Something to definitely mull over.